Let's dive right in. Everyone thinks they know the story of the Titanic, the largest ship in the world, a floating palace, cut short by an iceberg on its maiden voyage. But the truth is far darker. The steel they used to build it was so cheap, it might as well have been scrap metal. The freezing Atlantic turned it brittle, fragile as glass. When the iceberg struck, the ship didn't just scrape, it shattered. And here's the kicker. The crew had been warned, over and over, ice ahead, slow down. But instead of caution, they doubled down, racing through the night like nothing could touch them. Even the lifeboats were a scam, not enough to save everyone, because too many lifeboats would have cluttered the deck's luxury look. So when the iceberg hit, it wasn't just bad luck. It was the final domino in a disaster everyone had set in motion. Now, picture this: the Middle Ages. You've probably been told that people thought the Earth was flat, and Columbus came along to prove them wrong. Sounds dramatic, right? Problem is, it's a complete lie. For thousands of years, educated people already knew the Earth was round. Ancient Greek philosophers had measured its size with shadows and sticks, centuries before Columbus was even born. The flat Earth story? It was made up in the 1800s by writers who wanted to make medieval people look stupid. Columbus didn't prove the Earth was round. He just gambled on the wrong size and nearly killed his crew in the process. And then there's Napoleon. You've heard the stereotype. A short, angry man with an ego bigger than France. But he wasn't short. He was about average height for his time. The mix-up came from a measurement error, with French inches being longer than English ones. Add in some British propaganda cartoons mocking him as a tiny dictator, plus the fact that his personal guards were giants, and suddenly history remembers him as a man he never was. Not small, just surrounded by giants and swallowed by lies. When we talk about lies, few hit harder than the Salem witch trials. Hollywood has burned into our brains images of women tied to stakes, fire licking at their feet. But not a single person in Salem was burned. They were hanged. 19 people dropped from the noose. One man, Giles Corey, was pressed beneath stones until his chest caved in. Slowly crushed, others rotted away in jail cells. No fire, just rope, stones, and silence. The flames? That came from Europe's imagination, not America's history. The myths don't stop there. Think about Thanksgiving. The picture is so wholesome, it feels like a fairy tale. Pilgrims and Native Americans smiling across a table, passing turkey and corn in harmony. But the truth? That feast wasn't an invitation. The Wampanoag showed up armed because the sound of gunfire had echoed from the English settlement. The Pilgrims weren't hosting dinner. They were celebrating with muskets. What followed wasn't peace. It was war, disease, and the slow destruction of native land. Thanksgiving as a national holiday wouldn't even exist until Lincoln invented it centuries later, desperate to hold a divided country together. And then there's Nero, the infamous emperor said to have played his fiddle while Rome burned. But the fiddle didn't even exist in his lifetime. When flames consumed the city, Nero wasn't strumming anything. He wasn't even there. He rushed back to Rome, opened his gardens to survivors, and tried to organize aid. Was he cruel in other ways? Absolutely. But the image of him casually making music while his people screamed into flames was propaganda written by his enemies. History turned him into a villain, even worse than he was. Just like Marie Antoinette, the world knows her for 4 words: let them eat cake, starving peasants no bread, and their queen, cluelessly suggesting dessert. Except, she never said it. The line came from a book written years before she even set foot in France. But during the Revolution, people were desperate for a symbol of arrogance. They painted her as a monster of indulgence, draped in jewels while her people starved. The truth? She wasn't the saint her defenders claimed, but she also wasn't the heartless queen those words made her out to be. The cake quote was a weapon. And it worked. And then we reach the most American myth of them all, George Washington and the cherry tree. The story of a boy with a hatchet, a chopped tree, and the courage to confess with the line, "I cannot tell a lie." It's been told in classrooms for centuries, a parable about honesty. But the whole thing was pure invention. A writer looking to cash in on Washington's legacy made it up. He wanted to give America's first president a childlike aura of morality. And people bought it. the story stuck. A fake tale of honesty became one of the biggest lies in American folklore. History is full of shadows, and the stories we pass down aren't always the truth. Some are propaganda, some are mistakes, some are lies so powerful they outlive the people who created them. So here's the question. If the past we know is filled with myths, what other stories have we gotten completely wrong?